Friday, and welcome back to Season 5 of Beyond the Steps. I am Bree Zabrowski, co-founder and CEO of Apollo Performance Wear, here with my fabulous friend and co-host, Melissa McDaniel Grisham, founder of Turning Point Dance Creations, dance educator, and social justice advocate. We are so excited to be back with you today for another fabulous episode. This is Beyond the Steps. This is the show we talk about all things impacting performance athletes, from racism and gender inequity, sex abuse and prevention, nutrition, psychology, medicine and science, you name it, we cover it. We ask one question every week and invite one guest expert to join us, and we have a conversation and share perspectives. And really, this show is meant to get you thinking and create evidence-based resources and information to give you a platform and a foundation to kind of research more on your own and get your brain thinking and your wheels turning, because when we know better, we all do better. And that is the premise of this show. So we're excited to be back today with a dear friend, Gina Harris, another incredible partner that we have with Apollo this year. But she is the founder of Cheer Coach Academy. Melissa's going to talk a little bit more about her in a second, but we're talking today about how you build a solid cheer program. And I hesitate to say cheer because this information can be applied across the board to any athletic activity or organization that you want. As many of you know that watch the show regularly, Melissa and I have a strong background in dance, and I've been a co-founder and director of 3 different competitive programs, and I can tell you it all translates. So if you're out there and you are a director or a coach, and this is something you're looking to maybe improve the program that you're at, or maybe start one of your own, this will be a great episode for you to tune in, and hopefully you can walk away with some really great information. So Melissa, tell everybody about our friend Gina.
We love inviting new guests, especially after 5 seasons. So yeah. I am super excited to introduce Gina. Gina turned down a career in broadcasting, and decided to take her personal life traumas and use them for the good of others, and worked as a nonprofit executive, serving and inspiring others. After a 25-year nonprofit career, Gina is now an entrepreneur and sought after national speaker and consultant. Gina has shared her experiences in dozens of media outlets, including the Huffington Post, the LA Times, and People magazine, just to name a few. Gina became a cheerleader in 8th grade and was an All-American cheerleader. She began coaching cheerleading right after high school and has never stopped, much like me in dance. She is a 7-time championship cheer coach. Gina is the founder of Cheer Coach Academy, an online training and support resource for cheer coaches serving more than 20,000 coaches around the world. Gina is a proud and rare 6th-generation Coloradan, has watched every episode of Survivor and loves her family more than anything. Her husband, Rob, and her son, RJ, who is an elite all-star cheerleader. Welcome to the show, Gina.
Yay. Oh, thank you. Thanks for the introduction. It's so good to be here.
A rare Coloradan. Everybody says that about me being a Charlottean. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm from here. And they're like, "Oh, you're the one." Yeah, me and my family and my best friends, yeah, we're all the ones who are from here. Obviously, Gina, you have a ton of experience, not just in the cheer space, but also as an entrepreneur. Talk about why you gave up a broadcasting career, left the nonprofit industry, and chose to focus on some of the work that you're doing on continuing education for cheer coaches and gym owners. How did you decide to make this your mission, and what was the impact?
Well, we're going to go all the way back to when I was 13 years old, and it all comes together with cheer. My dad was 39 years old and instantly died of a brain aneurysm. He was fine one day, and then he was just gone. And obviously, as a 13-year-old girl, that's so devastating. Mm-hmm. But a few months later, I found cheerleading, and I was told I made the team because I smiled. Mm-hmm. And I really think I made the team because I had the best hair with the Aquanet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pictures. I share those. But I love cheer because I could go and to practice and forget about just some of the things that were going on at home, and just that whole snowball effect of losing my dad so suddenly and tragically. I could go there and smile and have fun. And then I actually became, good. I became an All-American. I wasn't good at first. And just loved it. So then I went to college. I have a broadcast journalism degree, but when I was in college, I ended up coaching cheer, and I found coaching cheer very shortly after I tragically lost my sister. She was murdered by her husband. And so I know
Wow.
I'm sharing some real tragic things with you, but it's all to let you know that those are the things that led me on this path of
Mm-hmm.
losing my dad, losing my sister. And so then I lost my sister. I met some high school cheerleaders. They said, will you come and help us? Because our coach is a teacher at the school. She has no idea what she's doing. And so I went and I helped them. And I found such a joy, even more joy coaching than I did actually cheering and competing in cheer. So I never stopped coaching. And there's been a series of other tragedies that had happened in my life. And all of that led me to a career in nonprofit work. But then after 25 years, I knew it was time to do something else. And I think it's been 8 years ago, I started Cheer Coach Academy. I started this company because I was helping a lot of other cheer teams as well as coaching my own. And I was finding there were many, primarily high school coaches that were just thrown into being coaches. They were voluntold to do it. A teacher at the school, somebody had cheered 20 years ago. So, oh, you must be able to coach. And when someone agrees to coach cheer, they want to do the best they can. I think any coach of any sport wants to do the best they can and have the resources. But I knew with my full-time career nonprofit, I couldn't continue to help that many coaches and come in and do choreography and do clinics. So I started Cheer Coach Academy, and it was just something that I spent a few hours a month on while being a CEO of a nonprofit. And it just continued to grow and grow. And I realized there's such a need here. And that's the core of myself as a coach, that really taking that whole life experience and knowing the impact that cheer had on me as an athlete, and then seeing over, I'm going to date myself, but 30 years worth of athletes that I have coached, and how cheer has helped them in their lives, some of them through real tragic situations, some of them being able to become really successful, a lot of them becoming very successful, and attributing cheer as being a foundation for that. So that's why I'm focused on this right now, and I love it. It's never work. Even as a coach, I can go to practice and it doesn't matter what's going on in my life. It doesn't matter what's happening. I can just focus in on cheer and hopefully have an impact on the athletes that I'm coaching.
I love it. You know, Apollo, a lot of people may just be realizing this because they're seeing us pop up on all their ads, but we just started really organically. We've supported cheerleaders for a long time, and cheer athletes and gymnasts and every other athlete you can think of, and regular people with foot pain and all the things. But cheer has been a new segment for us this year, and it's gone incredibly well. And I think one of the parallels that we're finding with cheer, you know, when we compare it to our journey in building and scaling in dance, is that it's the same. There's no accreditation, there's no requirement to be a cheer coach. A lot of the education is recycled over the years, and you know, we have tons of data and scientific research and things that we know that we didn't know 20 years ago or 30 years ago that have really changed the way that we look at treating these athletes from the inside out, head to toe. But yet, you know, when you become a coach, you really teach, you only know what you know, and you teach the way you were taught, and you coach the way that you were coached. And it's not always like the greatest approach, right? And so we have to, having resources like yours available, where we're kind of providing all of these more current resources and information, is, I agree, it's so much needed. And I'm so glad to see that you're doing it and that you've been called to do this work. I think it's just really important. So we're going to ask you today, and we're going to pull on that expertise a little bit. If you're somebody out there that you've been coaching for a while, or, you know, maybe you're just thrown into this role, what are the top 3 things to consider as you start to build a cheer program, for it to be successful, for it to be a healthy, stable environment, and competitive, because frankly, it is an insane amount of options out there in terms of programs, and very much like dance again, like it's really hard as a parent to know which one is legit, which one is your kid is going to get good training and be well taken care of. And there's all these scary allegations floating out that we, in the gymnastics world and the cheer world and the dance world, of things that happen, and how do we avoid those pitfalls? So where do we start? How do you lay that solid foundation so that your program is a healthy, competitive, it provides good training, and it's all these things that check the boxes for people when they walk through your door?
This is what I talk to coaches about, and even my own athletes, is know your identity.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't know who you are, if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, then whatever your other reasons may be, is it just to win? Is it just so you can have control over something? And you have to really dig deep and just think about why do I want to do this? Because if you're not in it for the right reasons, those wrong reasons will start trickling out. And through my decades of coaching, I've had those unhealthy places in my life where I'm like, gosh, I don't know if I'm doing this for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really more of an internal look, is the number one hands down foundation that you need to lay, because you have a huge impact on the athletes you're coaching. And so if you're not healthy yourself, and you don't have to be perfect, if you're not healthy yourself, then it's going to be difficult to have that impact on the athletes that you're coaching. So that is the most important part, and something that you need to self-reflect on every year. And I have this program, it's a free program, it's called Your Best Cheer Year Yet. And I think it would work for dance coaches and instructors as well. But just really reflecting on the year, what you learned about yourself, how you've grown, and then what you can do to improve. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I've made a regular practice of myself. Even after all of these years, I already have things this year that I'm looking to improve. So you need to make sure that you're doing this for the right reasons, because those wrong reasons will just come out in some form when you're coaching. You can't fake it for that long.
Well, so yeah. I want to touch on that, because this is so prevalent in every athletic activity again, but speaking to it from a dance perspective, when you're coached, I agree with you, everybody does the best they can. I don't think there's a coach that sets out and it's like, I want to harm kids.
I want to be a horrible coach, right?
Yeah, I don't want to be a horrible coach, and I don't want to destroy lives. I think for whatever reason, it can become that over time, like, inadvertently, but I don't think anybody sets out to do that. They only know what they know. But because 20, 30 years ago, we didn't have the same information, and because of all the reasons I said earlier, there are some toxic patterns of behavior and ways of thinking, ways of looking at eating and body image and improper stretching techniques, and all you can lump in so many things to this conversation, but there's things that are just learned and repeated. And like you said, if you can't break yourself of those ways of thinking before you go in and start coaching and building a program where you're directly responsible with impacting these young lives, you're ultimately going to start passing those toxic thoughts and training techniques onto this new generation. And that's where I think we see, like, the intent is great, but we see this spilling over of still to this day in 2024, things that are just not healthy for these young athletes. And it's because when you go backwards, we're just repeating information. Mm-hmm. We're cycling through, right? So when you say be healthy, I think we have to take all of that in consideration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it goes unchecked too. Like you're taking on the program the way you used to run it and the way the person coached you, but no one checked you and said, hey, so the way they coached you was not healthy.
Right. You almost have to rely on yourself to go, I don't think that was right.
I don't think that was great.
Yeah. And when you only have resources that you have at your disposal and you don't know what else is out there, it's really tough. So I really think that it's so valid that you said that, Gina. I love that you said that. So what is number 2 for you?
It's building a foundation for your program. So what will be your core values for your program? And I think every coach is different. And this kind of goes into what you had touched on as a parent looking for a program as well. Now, I'm highly competitive. And so that's one of my areas of growth because I want to win, but in my heart of hearts, I want to invest in the athletes that I'm coaching and help them be stronger individuals for the future. And so I've had to learn how to balance that. Like, we're going to work hard, we're going to be competitive, but not let that side of me always come out.
But can you do both? Do you think it's possible to have both?
I think you can. I have team after team that we've been very successful, and just my current team. This is my 4th year at this school, and my seniors, I had them stand up at a parent meeting just to share what they've gotten out of cheer over the last 3 years, so people could understand. Because from the outside, the school sees us as the 3-time state champs, 3 in a row. So they got it their freshman, sophomore, junior year, and not one of them, and I didn't coach them on what to say, not one of them said the best thing about this is that we've won state 3 times in a row. They talked about the discipline they've developed. They talked about the work ethic and the time management and the family they have within the team and how they get along. And as they were talking and then they were done, I looked at the parents and said, none of them mentioned the state championship, but that was pretty cool too. But to know that they're going to be graduating this next year, whether or not we win state this year or not, but to know that they can stand up impromptu and say, this is what they've gotten out of the program. And not one of them said it had to do with winning 3 state championships, which is a huge accomplishment. They realize it's the journey that they have gone on these last 3 years that have made them better human beings, and they're going to be stronger in their future, whatever their goals may be for the future. So you can have both, because I feel like I'm living the dream right now with this team. They bought in, and they worked hard. My first year with them, I said, we're contending for a state title this year. And they're like, no way. None of us have ever cheered before. And, we're a small 2A school. And I'm like, let's just work hard. Let's see what we can do. And they did it.
It just goes to show that when you have those values lined up, when you have everybody bought in and on the same page, the winning is a natural byproduct of that. And I think winning, when we talk about values and setting values for any program, I just had this conversation last night with some soccer parents, and I've really been thinking about this a lot. I think the goal of winning, it really gets a bad rap. Like, when you're honest and you say, like, I want to win, I think that gets a bad rap. I think there's a difference between wanting to win and winning at all costs, right? Those are 2 very different things. But if you're doing anything competitively and you're paying thousands of dollars, 100%, number one, the values and the way we're teaching it and training come first. But like I said, winning is a byproduct once you have everybody bought in. But if we're doing something at a competitive level and throwing all this money at it, and you don't want to come and win, what are we doing? Right. Like, and that's where, like, I'm still a little bit of there's still a little bit of a gap between, like, me as a parent and some of the parents in our program is like, you still have those people that are like, well, it's fun and this is just learning. And I'm like, that's implied, because we're here, right? Like, we all chose to play competitive and throw thousands of dollars at this thing, and like, our kids really want to do this and they've decided that they want to do this. So the want and the fun, it's already there because we're here. Like, it should be fun to show up and do this every day, or we shouldn't be here, right? But like, if we've chosen to go this competitive route and insert cheer, dance, soccer, whatever sport you want, that's not a bad thing to say, I want to win. Like,
Right.
you're not saying it shouldn't be fun or it shouldn't be a learning experience. It's just, there's a difference between winning and winning at all costs. And I definitely don't want to do that.
Yeah,
But
no. I tell my kids all the time, winning is fun.
yeah.
So we should, so
Like, what are we doing? Like, don't sit here and tell me you like losing every week.
Like
What's wrong
that's
with
part of the
you?
fun.
Yeah.
Winning is fun, but I think that what I try to impress upon my parents in my program is, yes, winning is a part of what we do, but it shouldn't be prioritized any higher than the discipline and the learning. Like those are equal priorities, if not greater priorities than the winning. So when you get into a situation where you're like, oh my gosh, we didn't win, I'm leaving the studio, I'm leaving the gym, or I'm leaving
That's
the
wrong.
team,
Right.
or like,
That's wrong.
are you comprehensively looking at what your child is getting in this program, on this team, at this gym? Or are you just looking at winning? Because if you're jumping for winning,
there's a lot of shady business that goes into this competition and strategies that have nothing to do with training, in the terms of the way people register for competitions and the numbers of kids that they pull in. And there's multiple locations that have the same team name, but they're very different locations and they're run by different people. But that team gets the cred because all of a sudden you start seeing that team everywhere, but it's not really the same team, but it's, people just recognize the name now. And so, yeah, there's definitely some things that have nothing to do with training that go into that like winning mentality. But I'm more talking about like the people that are like, just winning isn't, like, it's not okay. Like, there's this negative connotation to saying that I want to win. And I think where Gina's at with building that list of values, and it's the key is having everybody bought in, because I think like where we're at in soccer, there's some people that are really hungry for it and want to push and want to do everything they can and show up on time and be early and do extras and really be focused at practice. And then there's some people that are like, missing practice pretty consistently, being late to games, and all of those things. That's not the same value system. So the byproduct, which is winning, is never going to be easily attained because not everybody's bought in at the fundamental level. And so I hear that's what you're saying. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into the third one. It's the communication. I'm very clear, and I coach high school, so it's different than being in an all-star cheer gym, which I'm a mom of an all-star cheerleader, so I know that perspective. But I'm very clear, and a lot of these parents grew up at a time where it was, oh, yay, we have little cheerleaders on the sideline, and it wasn't as competitive at that school level.
Oh, they're full-blown athletes. Yeah, they're
amazing. Yeah. I'm very clear, and I do say I want to win, but these are our values. And I have had conversations with parents where they're like, well, I don't want her to burn out, and I just want her to have fun. And I said, these are in place out of respect for those athletes that are showing up every day, that are putting in the work. We're respecting them, and we're respecting our sport as well, because sports like cheer and dance don't always get that credibility of maybe football does as being a sport. I mean, even with my team, I'm like, you're not leaving at halftime and grabbing nachos at the concession.
I was like, yeah.
Football players do that. You were drinking water and you're still in game mode. Yes, you can kind of relax at that point. Because I don't need to really do a huddle at halftime with my team like my husband, who's a football coach, does with his team. But we need to treat it that way. And so very much so, especially in school cheer and dance, you have to communicate that to parents. And as clear as I communicate it, a 15-page handbook, seriously, it's all laid out. You communicate it, then there's no surprises. And now I have everything itemized that they have to initial. So we understand that. And still, some of them don't get the memo that, yes, we do practice every day like other high school sports. This is how we do it. But the communication part is key as well. And if you know who you are, if you set a foundation for your values and you can communicate that and be very clear up front, then those are the foundation. Then everything else will come into place as far as safety and training. And that's a whole other conversation as well. But you put that all in place and you have that foundation, and don't be afraid to lose anyone from your team because you're sticking to this is what it is. Now, I will say I'm flexible on things and I feel like I'm approachable. Sometimes I don't appear approachable because this is our program, but also within reason, sometimes you have to make some concessions on some things here and there. I think my team needs practice off tomorrow. I really do. Just some different sicknesses and stuff. But they have been working so hard. We've had near 100% attendance. And because of that, they've earned that practice off tomorrow.
Sure.
And so they see that when everybody buys in, they see that other side of it too, that we coaches can be reasonable about, okay, let's have some common sense on what's going to work.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's so interesting that, we asked you, what are the top things to consider when building a cheer program? And at no point did you talk about the equipment or the budget, or like you talked about the core values, the thing, the heart of the program. And that is, I think, attributed to the success of your program with leading other coaches around things that they need to do. Like, people automatically go to how much money is it going to take? What should they be wearing? Are their uniforms the best ever? Are there like those types of things? And they skim over what is the heart of your program.
And that's important. I mean, I could tell you story after story, the conditions I've coached in, like ceiling's not high enough. So we run outside to throw a basket toss and in the cold weather in Colorado. And then we come back inside and not having all the mats and having ugly uniforms. And the thing is those teams would never mention that. They would talk about that heart of the program. And I've lost more competitions than I've won. I've lost more state championships than I've won. And I prepare my team that this is another part of it. Success isn't determined by how much you have won. As competitive as I am, you set goals for your team and you have your team come together and set those goals what are the things that are in your control? Because I have lost state championships by members stepping off the mat. I've lost state for a hair bow falling out. Back at that time, it was a 5-point deduction.
Wow.
When tenths of a point separate teams, 5 points for a hair bow falling out. So I can tell you story after story. So the goals for your team should always be, while you want to win, should always be the ones that are within your control. We want to hit 0, no deductions in our routine. We want this transition to be really clean. We want to be unified. You set all those goals. So when those things happen where you have some deduction that you would have never expected, you have a fall that stunt never ever fell, and that falls in the competition, then that doesn't completely crush them. When maybe
it doesn't define you. That loss doesn't define
you. Exactly. That's not where their identity lies. Now, if you do all that work and you set those goals and you actually do have a good enough team that could win a state championship, that will probably come. But as much as there's rubrics and we're trying to make sure our sports, cheer and dance especially, are not subjective, that still can happen. And there are teams, different set of judges, there would have been a different winner. And I prepare my teams for that as well, because I always have to think about that conversation when we don't win, because we don't always win.
Yeah. Well, 2 things come to mind. So the first one being, we're talking about building competitive programs and all of that, but that is also a value. There are plenty of people out there that don't love the stringent competition environment, and they don't love putting that on the kids, and they don't love it themselves, and they don't love all the quote unquote drama that comes with that, in dealing. And so I know plenty of organizations as well that's not where they prioritize their value system. And some parents really love that. And there's a place for everybody. Right. And I think going back to what you said about clearly communicating that value system, so people know what they're getting when they walk in your doors, so they can choose for themselves, this is the right place for me, or no, it's not. You don't want to try to fit a square peg in a round hole. You want it to be a good fit, because ultimately you as a director, coach, whatever, your program is going to thrive when you have the right mix of people under your value system. And so finding that program that maybe isn't as competitive, it's out there, but you got to do your research, you got to look for it. And then the other thing is that, you know, the being consistent with those values and staying true to who you are. And it is really scary when you're building something new to turn people away, right? And say this probably isn't a good fit for you. But I promise, and I've lived this on the dance side of things, when you stay true to that value system and you tell people this isn't a good fit, you maybe go here. Like I would send people down the road all the time because I'm like, I just know like this, and it killed me because I loved the kid. I thought the kid was really talented, but what they were looking for in a program did not match the value system that I was establishing. And especially when you're starting out, it is so important in building a program to stay true to those values so that you get people in your doors that match. Right. And that's how you build a program. So, I love everything that you just said, and it definitely applies across the board.
If you're just now, go for it, Gina.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
If you're just now tuning in, God probably have some people that just now joined. You're watching Beyond the Steps. We are here with Gina Harris talking about how you build a program. She is a hardworking coach as well as a coach to coaches. And she is sharing her expertise. She has dropped quite a few gems so far about the keys, things you considered when you start your program. If you want to watch this episode from the beginning, you can at Apollo Performance or at TP Dance Creations, but don't do it right now because we want you to hear the rest of the things that are coming. We also want you to invite some friends over, tag, call, text, subscribe, like, share, whatever it is, so that your friends can join in on this conversation. Also, let us know what you think. Drop some ideas and thoughts in the comments. We love to read them and hear them as well. Advice for parents. So usually parents walk into a gym, or they walk into a dance studio, or they walk into a soccer program or whatever, and the first thing they have are all these plaques and trophies and all these things that are in the window, and they're like, how many have you won? I think you win a lot. That's what people always say. But based on our conversation, that doesn't sound like the question they should probably be asking first. So
they might.
They can. It can be the only question. But what questions do you think they should ask?
Well, now being a cheer mom, I give you some background. 3 years ago, my son, when he was 9, he said, will you teach me a back handspring? So I'm like, that's so cool when boys tumble, right? Taught him a back handspring. He picked it up pretty quick. And my husband said, should we put him in all-star cheer? And I'm like, really? You'd want to do that? My husband, the football coach. And my son was really interested. So for us as parents, there's probably 2 different types of parents out there. You are brand new, starting some kind of sport, some kind of program, and you have no idea if your kid will be good, if they'll like it. But then you might have an athlete that's further along in their development and their skill level. And so for those of you that are new to it, for me, I knew a value of our family is we want to go to a program that wins. We want, if my son is trying cheer out, which is rare for a 9-year-old boy to be trying this out, we want him to go to a gym where he can really experience all of that. And so it was really important for us to do a Division I gym as opposed to Division II, even though it would have been less expensive, closer for us, not as much of a time commitment, but that's our values of family. Now there's many families that would just prefer, let's just go real small and we'll go to a D2 gym, and not to minimize D2 gyms because there's many that are amazing. So you need to see, like, do you want a bigger gym or a smaller gym? For us, that was just our journey. I had no idea within 3 years my son would be throwing level 6 tumbling skills. So then now the whole part of the journey is, okay, what's his future and what programs are for him? And so it's really unique for him because he's a male athlete. And so having a male potential world co-ed worlds team for the future, that's important to us. But he could have done cheer and said, this is really fun. And maybe he would have moved up a level or 2 within the last 3 years and been content. So you need to see your skill level of your athlete too, and kind of what the future is. But when we first were looking, we weren't looking at he's going to be on a world's team one day, because we had no idea. So if you're new to a sport and you're looking, then of course, like the values of the gym, them laying out what their expectations are, don't be scared off by that. I think the more expectations that they lay out, then they're upfront and it's on the table and you know what you're getting yourself into. The last thing you want if you're new to cheer or dance is to go in and you think, oh, this is great, we just practice on Tuesday and Thursday, and then you find out all this other information, like
right
on practice. Yeah. And so don't be scared off by a long contract. I mean, because a lot of gyms will have you sign a pretty lengthy contract of what you agree to. Actually respect that, because they thought that through and they're laying it all out and they're not surprising you. And you're going to get sticker shock at the cost, but be happy that they put it all out up front, because there are programs that they're like, oh yeah, we also need this money for this and that money for that. So look at that as well. And then you obviously want to make sure that has that gym been in trouble, the coaches, and now you can research that information. And then what kind of safety protocols do they have in place? Do they have policies that coaches are not alone with the athletes? And, how do they handle injuries? How do they handle for cheer, like stunt progression? I've gone to competitions and, there may be a level 4 team out there and they have no business doing level 4 skills. Like it's not ready for competition, and it's not good advertising for the gym. So gym owners, you may have a lot of athletes that are like, we want to move up a level or we're leaving the gym. It's not worth it, because it's not good advertising when you're sitting in an audience and you're seeing the gym across town dropping a lot of stunts that they should.
And it's super dangerous for the athletes, right?
It is exactly. So looking at how do they teach stunt progressions? Are they trying to level up all their athletes just so they can say they have this level team, or are they going to even stack a team where we have cheerleaders with level 3 and 4 skills, but we're going to stack this level 2 team, and that might be really appealing to you too, because that level 2 team could go and win NCAA nationals, or they could go and win Summit. So that's once you get a little further along. When you're just starting off, for cheer, you could go into, a novice program, prep, elite program. There's, a lot of different options. But if your athlete is a little further along in their skill level, you may want to look at that. Is it more important that if they have level 4 skills, do you want them on that team? Or do you like the idea of, okay, they can be down a level and that team's actually going to probably have an opportunity to win? You'll have to look at those things too.
Yeah.
There's so much, but
and asking honestly, and I have to say this, I feel like I have to say this because of, Apollo and what we do and what we stand for, but also what kind of flooring do they have? What kind of equipment? If we're seeing so many avoidable injuries in the cheer space, so many, which is why, Apollo, the response to Apollo is so great, because we're literally here to mitigate that. Right. And that these athletes are just struggling with debilitating ankle and foot injuries that are just going to be with them for the rest of their life as a chronic pain. And a lot of them don't have the proper equipment, the proper footwear, the proper flooring in the gyms. There's so many things to take into consideration. So how is that space doing everything they possibly can to make sure they're protecting the bodies of these athletes? And that's another question that you should probably be asking too. Gina, how do you avoid, because this is inevitable, you start a program, you build a program. How do you avoid the pitfalls of comparing your program to other successful programs out there? Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, I know it's really hard to do, but when you start looking at other programs, you're taking your focus off your own and really focus on what makes you unique. And there's, different programs, they have different personalities, and you only see what they put out in competition, what they're posting. You don't see what's going on behind the scenes either. And so you don't want to compare their highlight reel to what's actually going on at your gym or within your program. So I really advise just try not to compare. Be content with where you're at. And some of the most successful cheer programs I've seen have been the ones that have slowly built and they've gotten better and better. And be okay with where you're at that point. Even with my teams, when we go on the warm-up mat, it's so easy to look at the other teams on the warm-up mat.
Oh yeah.
And I don't tell them to look or not to look. I just say, if it's going to make you anxious by watching the other teams, just don't look.
Don't do it.
But be secure in who you are. And that's why we start with the foundation of your identity. Why are you doing this? Because you know what? You're not going to be the best at everything. You're just not. And even the program that you think is the best, they're not the best at everything either. And so if your identity is not secure, then you're going to be comparing yourself more to other programs. So I don't know if I have this magic thing to say, except for don't compare yourself. Focus on what makes you unique as a program, as an athlete, as a coach. Focus on what makes you unique and capitalize on that. I mean, I really enjoy coaching at a small school. We're a 2A school. The team that I have now, they're doing skills that a lot of the other schools think we're a much bigger school. And it's so fun to go in and be like, we have 200 students in our high school, and none of these girls have ever cheered before. And to be able to do the things that we're doing, there's nothing I love more as a coach than to build a program like that. And some coaches, they want to go into the bigger schools with an established program. You know, that's not me as a coach. Like, I've really found that I like working with new athletes, and we have a middle school program, and I'm working with them on the choreography right now. And I'm like, this is my future. And just teaching them basic things like don't bend your wrist when you do you know, I go to a big school and those athletes already know that. They're getting those first skills for the first time. Like, they put up a prep. That is just so satisfying as a coach. So I've really established, like, this is my sweet spot as a coach, and I'm not going to compare myself to other schools, the bigger schools. And even those small schools that we compete against, we're not going to compare ourselves. We need to walk in with our own identity, because in these performance type sports, cheer, dance, you can feel that. I judge competitions too. You know when a team has an identity. They walk out, and even if they don't have the most advanced skills, you know that they know who they are. And that automatically is going to just be picked up by the judges. And of course, they should be as fair as possible in scoring. But, you know, those overall effect or routine composition, those sort of things can be impacted as well on the score too. So it will affect your performance if you're comparing yourself.
Right.
Go back to
we just did a show last week about comparison and trying to keep up. So totally understand that. Do you think it's helpful to be part of a gym as a coach first before you start your own program, or can you do it independently?
I'm not sure. I was a director of an all-star program a long time ago, like 20 years ago, and I had coached high school cheers. So I think that was helpful. I think it would just depend on the person, but getting an idea of how another gym operates and just seeing how they operate, I think that could be pretty helpful to do that. But I think it would be an individual situation and what their background is.
Yeah, agreed. There's probably a lot of pros and cons, but we'll save that for another episode. We'll talk about that another time. But Gina, since you are new with us, for everybody watching, by the way, this is Beyond the Steps. We're talking with Gina Harris about how to build a successful foundation for a cheer program, but you could insert any sport or activity into that. It pretty much applies across the board. A great insight here. So make sure you go back to the beginning and watch. But Gina, we give all of our viewers homework every week, something that they can improve on or learn about from between this episode and the next one. So what do you want to challenge our viewers to do for their homework assignment this week?
All right, we're going to dig deep. So we started off with identity. So the homework assignment is, if you don't know your identity, then you will try to find it in something else, such as winning, or in how well your athletes and your parents like you. But you're not always going to win, and not everyone's going to like you. So my homework for you is to spend some time in reflection, and however that may be. I live in Colorado, so going on a hike in the mountains is great. Or if you want to go on a run, or if you just need to get to a quiet place and journal, listen to music, whatever would help you to really reflect on, where is my identity? And there's this quote that I just came across from Leaders Life and Work: until you settle your identity, you will live in leadership insecurity. Until you settle your identity, you will live in leadership insecurity. Like I said at the beginning, really having a foundation for yourself. And it's something that you never 100% arrive at. Like, here's who I am, here's my identity. It's going to impact how you lead. And so it's really important to just reflect on that, write in a journal, figure out, where your identity lies. And for me, it's my faith. My faith is unshakable regardless of what's happening around me, whether I win, whether I lose, whether parents like me or not, whether athletes like me or not. Having a strong identity is in something that is unshakable in your life. So what are those things that are unshakable? That if your program went away or everybody turned against you, where does that identity and that foundation lie for you? So figure that out, and then revisit it at least every year, probably a couple times a year, because there are going to be times when you feel like, and it's probably not true, but you feel like the parents are all coming against me, or I don't think any of my athletes like me. You have to go back to that foundation.
Yeah. And knowing who you are. And it's also at some point going to become clear, like, where I was when I started my program and how steadfast I was in those values. It evolved a little bit every year. And by year 3 or 4, there were some big changes, things that, when you have to do things differently when you're starting a program versus when the program is established. And yes, the core values are the same in what you're putting out, and the way that you train, and the way that you work with your athletes, and the service you provide. But the way that looks will evolve, and that's okay too. And having those check-ins with yourself every single season, or a couple times a season, maybe once mid-season and once at the end of the season. What went right? What went wrong? What feedback am I getting from my families? What are they needing that I'm not providing? And how can I do it and still feel good about maintaining my value system? Like that's inevitably going to happen. And if you're going through that and you're feeling like having moments where you feel like everybody's against you, chances are you've built your program, and now you need to grow your program, which looks a little bit different, right? So I think all of this is just great insight again, Gina. And we have the same homework that we give every single week here at Beyond the Steps. It is to take our Steps Initiative course. I dropped that link in for you guys. And it is so important that we get the word about this course. It is absolutely free. It is the catalyst for the show. It is why we started the show. But it is basically a 5-course module, or each module was curated by experts in their field. It's 5 courses. You can go at your own pace. Anybody can take it. Again, free. But it's going to talk about racism, gender inequity, sex abuse prevention, nutrition, psychology, and medicine and science. And it's going to give you evidence-based research, and hopefully be a platform, a launching pad for you to sort of dive in your own and learn more, because when we know better, we do better. And that's what we always say on this show. Gina was kind enough to provide so many resources for us today that she is sharing with all of you. And if you're out there and you're thinking about starting a program, Melissa put those in the ticker, but you can see Cheer Coach Academy resources, the Cheer Coach Academy store. She has an article linked, 12 ways to escalate your stunts with stunting drills, blog articles that are linked for coaching for character. Success is never defined by a trophy. It's not about the trophy, navigating victory, and a vision alignment session. So definitely check out all of these links. We're going to add it to the comments as well once this episode goes live, so you can see all the resources linked there. And we encourage you to check those out. Gina, tell everybody out there that may be watching this now or in the future how they can get in touch with you. And do you coach coaches one-on-one? Do you do virtual options? Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, the website's cheercoachacademy.com, and under resources, you'll see a number of free resources, which we have those links for, and then also other courses as well. And I do virtual coaching as well. So you can send videos in and I can watch and give you feedback. I've done one-on-one calls with coaches, just them needing advice on different situations. I think what the most popular program is Stunt School 2.0, which is demoing stunts all the way from beginner to elite level stunts. And so a lot of the coaches like that as well. But there's plenty of resources. It's all on the website. And I'd love to connect with you. We have there's also a Cheer Coach Academy Coaches Forum on Facebook. So we have, I think, 6,000 coaches that are on there. And
can anyone join, or do they have to be a member of Cheer Coach Academy?
Anyone can be on it. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So all of those links are on the website.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Definitely check it out. And you do a coaches conference annually, right? For coaches.
Well, we had our first coaches conference. It was a virtual one over the summer. And I am blown away by the feedback from the coaches. The workshops were incredible. And actually, you can get access to it now. It's all the workshops are online. And so that's on the website. So just click on coaches training. But I'm so thankful for Apollo Performance for being one of the sponsors. And I'm a personal fan because my son, he uses them, and it's really helped his ankles because they were really sore when he started doing more advanced swimming skills. So he wears them, and he's a big advocate for them. But yeah, the coaches conference, we'll be doing it again next summer, but you can have access to all of it. We have some of the best cheer, I guess you can call them influencers, that you probably follow on Instagram that are doing the workshops. And it was so, so valuable. The feedback from the coaches just blew me away. And I learned a ton. I was already sending the videos ahead of time to my assistant. I was like, you have to watch this.
Well, congratulations on a successful conference, and everybody out there watching, put it on your calendar for next year. It is so cool that there's the virtual option, because you can do it from anywhere in the country or the world and get this really valuable information. And we talk about, you only know what you know, and coaches really need to stay up on what's happening in cheer today. And this is another really great accessible way for you to do that. And not only my understanding, Gina, is like you said, you get the conference and you get to attend and be with like-minded people, but you also get access to this entire library of information for the whole year following that conference. So it is, a tremendous value, and we encourage you guys to check that out for next summer. So make sure you're following Cheer Coach Academy and checking the website from time to time as more information gets updated for next year's event. And Gina, thank you so much for being here and for sharing all of your experience and insight. We can't wait to have you back. I can already tell you we're going to be asking you to come back. So we really, really appreciate your time and joining us today.
Yes. Absolutely. It's awesome to have a first time guest and now a repeat guest coming back. So thank you so much. Thank you, Bree, for journeying with me beyond the steps. It has been amazing for the past 5 seasons. Next Friday is a flashback. Speaking of 5 seasons, we are flashing back to one of our older favorite episodes. So please tune in for that and make sure that you share. If you want to watch this episode from the beginning, please go to YouTube at Apollo Performance or at TB Dance Creations. You can also catch them at on Facebook at those same addresses. Until next week, we hope you continue your journey beyond the steps. See you then.